Welcome back for another episode of Errant Adventures, the solo actual play podcast where stories are told at the speed of dice. With me, Steve Morrison, your game master and solo player. Now come on, let's grab the dice and see where our story goes. Welcome back for Chapter 40 of Book 1, Meridian. Last time, the Howland Wolf returns to Cassida without incident. As Sejana and Mac transport Minister Torvarius to the palace, Einar prepares to face Mr. Zhang. At Zhang Imports, Einar is forced to wait for hours until Mr. Zhang is available. Once in the meeting, Mr. Zhang expresses his displeasure in the damage to the wolf and the risk presented by having that liar aboard, something Einar argued for the last time there was an incident. He removes Einar from his captaincy and offers him severance. At the palace, they enter a debriefing with the Minister of War, Arvesh Satal, and First Admiral Alexia Tualeski, who once captained the ship Falcon Squad was stationed on during the final months of the Regular War. She asks to speak with Sejana privately after the meeting's conclusion. It's 2 hours into the meeting before the War Minister's attention turns to Sejana. Having heard about the fall of Sembria, he's curious about the fall of Creus. Though it doesn't hold the same level of significance, disquiet permeates the room as she recounts the overwhelming force applied to capturing the system. Admiral Tualeski makes a few notes. Once she's finished recounting their escape from Creus, she explains the circumstances that led to the wolf being captured by hierarchy commandos. Tualeski stops her note-taking and looks up as Sejana describes clearing the cargo hold. "Impressive, de Cure-le-Chale," she says. "Many members of the former Imperial military have found fulfilling careers within the Cassidan Navy." Sejana meets her gaze and offers a curt nod, which draws a smirk from the Admiral. She finishes her report and says, "By now those prisoners should be in Cassec custody, and I'm sure on their way to an unpleasant facility that will help them answer any additional questions you may have." Before the Admiral can interject again, War Minister Satal says smoothly, "The Grand Duchy of Cassida thanks you for your service, and unlike the Admiral, I understand the desire to exist outside the military complex. While there isn't an open bounty on hierarchy commandos, I'm certain we can find some compensation for your efforts." Sejana offers him a slightly less curt nod. The rest of the meeting only lasts another 10 minutes or so, as a few follow-up questions are asked. Minister Torvarius and his entourage are invited to stay in quarters within the palace, so they may be better protected. As those gathered stand, the War Minister invites Torvarius to walk with him. Mac claps her on the shoulder and says, "Duty calls. Let's grab a drink later." She nods. "We've got unfinished business." He grins. "I'll have the minister transfer the rue to your account." "Take care of yourself," Sejana says. "Just because you're in the palace doesn't mean you're safe." "You either," he replies, nodding past her. Sejana feels the Admiral approaching and offers Mac her knife-like smile, before schooling her face back into an impassive mask and turning to face the woman. Admiral Tualeski smiles and says, "Despite Arvesh's barb, I would be remiss if I didn't talk to you about your military career." "My career died with the Emperor," Sejana replies. "Based on your profile, I wouldn't label you as a fanatic, even for a technomancer." "I'm no fanatic. But when the Emperor died, the Empire died, and patriotism doesn't fill a person's stomach." The Admiral gestures and they start walking. Many Imperial forces followed the Grand Duke here to Cassida. You could have done the same, but you disappeared. Why? After Centaura, the Grand Duke took the fleet to Conopraxis. I remember. Of course, and you likely saw our orders. Falcon Squad dropped onto the planet. The orbital bombardment had destroyed most of the Imperial structures. Our mission was to enter the remains of the Imperial Palace and pull out anything we could that might preserve the Emperor. Sejana falls silent as an aide approaches in the hallway. The Admiral waves them away and says, "Apologies. Please, go on." By that time, the regular fleet had already pulled out, disappearing void knows where, but they left behind a fanatical death squad because they knew we would be coming, and they wanted to make sure they had routed out every piece of Imperial rejuvenation tech in the place. They hit us right after we entered the secondary convalescence lab. I watched one of my squad vaporized by plasma throwers before we even knew they were there. We fought them off, but they trashed the lab around us. Tessar Mareth made the call and we pursued them. Maybe they had raided the lab before we got there, and the material we were after was with them. Tualeski turns down a corridor and opens a door into a well-appointed office. She crosses the room to a bar built into the wall. Drink? Sejana shakes her head, and the Admiral sets the decanter down and settles onto a plush couch that looks out through a large bay window towards the sheer. Sejana joins her. "So, how did you get off of Carnopraxis?" the Admiral asks. "Surely you've already heard this story from Mareth when he joined the Grand Duke's service?" Tualeski's eyes widen slightly, but she smooths her expression in seconds. "Ah, you didn't know that one of my squad was already working in the palace. Curious." The Admiral shrugs. "The Grand Duke is entitled to employ whomever he wants without consulting me." Sejana sighs and says, "We pursued the regular death squad through the catacombs beneath the palace to an old technomancer ritual site. They had prisoners who were holding open a portal from the other side. We had seconds to decide, and Mareth ordered us through. We ended up on the edge of known space. The amount of power required to hold open a portal like that was impressive. 23 technomancers spent the last of their energy holding that portal active." She falls silent, staring out the window. That silence fills the room as the Admiral waits. Finally, Sejana blinks and looks at her. "There were more regular on the other side, but we didn't let a single one of them leave that ritual site alive. It cost 2 more of our squad, and the 3 of us who survived have scars we'll carry for the rest of our lives. We were badly hurt, on a planet in the wilds with a failed mission. There wasn't anything left to preserve. We took the regular ship, crashed it on a friendly planet, and dragged ourselves into town for med attention. By then it was all over, and, well, we went our separate ways." Sejana looks at the Admiral. "We could have come to Cassida and offered service to the Grand Duke, but we spent everything we had left on that forgotten world. At least, I did. Mareth, obviously, felt differently, but Pavor and I picked alternate careers." Tualeski is quiet for a moment, then she takes a breath and says, "Thank you for that clarity. It is something I've wondered for a long time. And when I saw your name on the report today, I had to ask." She gets up and opens the decanter, pouring a glass. Pausing, she offers a questioning look to Sejana, who shakes her head once again. The Admiral shrugs, shoots the contents down in one smooth motion, and refills it. Returning to her spot on the couch, the Admiral says, "We all have stories of the post-downfall, but yours is by far the most harrowing I've heard yet. I understand why you chose a different path." She clears her throat and then takes a sip of her drink. "The hierarchy is growing bolder. I don't need to press the point with you. You've witnessed their expansion, and we both know they're not going to stop. So far, the Grand Duke has pursued a policy of firm indifference. As long as the hierarchy doesn't directly move against our trading partners and allies, we stay out of their way. With the fall of Sembria, that stance has eroded. Sembria and Cassida have long been allies. While Creus may not be as advanced or important of a planet, it is directly within the Cassidan sphere of protection." She sighs and swirls the liquid in her glass. "Cassida cannot suffer the indignity silently. We're hurtling towards conflict with the hierarchy. I could use someone with your skills and experience, but I understand you have established a level of freedom. So instead of asking you to join us out of a sense of loyalty, I'm asking you to consider taking contracts from a broker who works with my staff." I'm sorry, Admiral, but tangling with the hierarchy has placed people I care about in danger. I have no intention of taking any more contracts that could possibly cross the hierarchy while I'm with my crew. And no amount of rue might convince you to rethink your crew conditions? I'm afraid not. The Admiral sips her drink and says, That's disappointing, but I understand. Though I would warn you, conflict is coming, and there may be a point where it's impossible to avoid clashing with the hierarchy. If you help us sooner rather than later, it may keep your friends safer in the long term. Sejana stands. Thank you for your offer, Admiral. I will keep it in mind. Tualeski stands as well and extends her hand. Please do. If you are interested, send my chief of staff a message. She'll have the broker reach out. Sejana shakes the Admiral's hand and leaves the office without another word. She starts making her way back to the transport docks, but is intercepted by an escort before she can make 2 turns. The palace attendant guides her without conversation and summons her a drift car. As it lifts away from the palace, Sejana leans her head back, closes her eyes, and exhales a long breath. All right, it's been a lot of talking the last couple of chapters, but I don't feel too bad about that because there was a whole lot of dice rolling during the fight for the wolf. Let's go ahead and interrupt this chapter's conversations with some advancement rolling. As a reminder, I'm using the alternative experience point advancement chart from the Traveler Companion book, along with Seth Skorkowski's alternative method of gaining XP. As a refresher, the first time a character rolls a success on a skill above a target number of 8+, easier checks don't count. They mark that skill. At the end of the term, which could be a session or an adventure, in this case, it's right now, we will roll 1d6 minus 1 for each marked skill. If that roll equals or exceeds the current skill level, they get 1 XP to add to that skill. They also get 1 free XP to add to any skill or characteristic. Let's start with Tashin Voral. He may be a villain and a traitor, but he's got a character sheet, so might as well roll against the skills he marked since I instituted this new rule. Checking my notes, it looks like he marked stealth and deception, which, yeah, that tracks. All right, his stealth skill is level 1, so as long as I roll a 2 or higher on the d6, he gets an XP towards stealth. 5 minus 1 is a 4. Let's roll deception as well, which is also a skill rank of 1. 2 total is another XP. Plus he gets that free XP to place toward any skill or characteristic. According to the chart in the Traveler Companion, it costs 2 XP to gain a second rank in a skill. So I think I'll increase his deception from 1 to 2 by spending the free XP along with that 1 XP that he earned. Looking at Einar next, it unfortunately looks like he didn't mark any skills. He didn't have much to do in the last few chapters, so that kind of makes sense. He still gets that 1 free XP, so let's assign that. Based on the repairs he had to do, I'm going to put it towards engineer. And since he has a 1 in J drive and M drive, I think I'll add a 1 to power systems as well. Ayadi's only successful roll was carouse. She has a 0 in that skill, so she's going to automatically gain an XP towards that, which can turn that into a level 1 in carouse. I'm going to put the free XP towards her astrogation, which is also a 0, increasing it to a +1 rank. I instituted the rule after her jump from Kreas, but I think she's definitely been learning over the last few adventures some things about astrogating and jumping from that experience. I left Sejana for last because, as I'm sure you can imagine, she marked a lot of skills in the last few chapters. Let's start with her psionics. She marked awareness, telekinesis, and teleportation. That's a skill rank of 1, 2, and 0, respectively. I've got a 1 for awareness, which gives her 1 XP. a 4 for telekinesis for another XP, and teleportation is also a 4 for another XP, taking her to a skill rank of 1 in teleportation, which makes sense. She's been working on her portaling quite a bit. Moving on to the more regular skills, she successfully marked Stealth at rank 1, Gun Combat Slug at rank 2, Gun Combat Laser at rank 2, Melee Combat Electroblade at rank 2, Electronics Computers at rank 1, and Athletics Dexterity at rank 1. That is 6 different skills marked, so I'm going to roll some dice. Here are the rolls: 1, 3, 3, 5, 2, and 5, respectively, which means that is an XP for each of those skills. With the free XP, I could increase her awareness, stealth, computers, or athletics, or I could put it towards something else. I do think I'm going to bump up her awareness because that's the base skill for her Void Cloak, and she has definitely put that to use a few times. And there we go. Everyone gained a little bit of experience and advanced. It definitely gets more challenging and costly to increase as the skill ranks get higher, for instance. For instance, going from 2 to 3 costs 4 XP. From 3 to 4 is 8 XP. So that will definitely slow down advancement, but it feels good for the crew's hard work to pay off a little bit. They would have advanced some more if I went back and marked all the other skills they succeeded with, but frankly, that sounded incredibly tedious. I'll just track it moving forward. We're closing in on the end of part 2, but in the meantime, there's a crew dinner to go to. I'll see you at Campeche's. Campeche sits on an outcropping of the sheer about halfway down the cliffside avenue from where the palace and parliament buildings sit. Estates and beautiful architectural feats belonging to the wealthiest citizens of the Cassidon system wrap around the governmental center and sprawl down the sheer. Known for its exquisite meals and unparalleled service, the presence of a Campeche's represents the height of excellence and civilization. At least that's what the extensive marketing department of the restaurant attests. Most major worlds in the Masked Empire boasted a Campeche's, and even post-downfall, it is a place where the elite dine. It's with that in mind that Sejana adjusts the obsidian black coat of her new pantsuit. It wasn't hand-tailored to her needs, and doubtless there will be people present who would take note of that, but it was by far the most expensive piece of clothing she'd bought. Under normal circumstances, she wouldn't go to so much effort, but this was important to Einar, and she owed the captain enough to take it seriously. A doorman offers her a sharp bow and opens the door for her. Sejana nods to him and steps inside, partially amused by the waste of resources that a doorman represents. Automated doors and a good scanner would be much more cost-effective, though she supposes that's part of the point. After all, if they can't afford to pay someone to greet guests, are they really the premier restaurant in the universe? Inside, soft music plays, and an army of servers perform an elegant dance through the dining room and out onto the patio, caring for every need of their guests. Even the small tables tucked into the corner away from the sheer would cost most people a month's salary or more. That's where she looks for Einar and Ayati, but a younger Haldren woman who looks vaguely familiar steps forward and says, "Mix Luchel, please. This way." Sejana quirks an eyebrow and steals a glance back at the entrance. Sure enough, there are ident scanners hidden in the corners above the door. She looks back at the Haldren and nods. The woman guides her through the dining room, past a well-apportioned bar, and out onto the deck that extends into the open air along the sheer. They pass at least one table that contains a few members of Grand Duke Zaranovsky's family before they reach a table on the very edge of the patio with a beautiful view of the city. Einar and Ayadi are waiting, and as she approaches, they turn to look and see her. Einar is wearing a different suit from this morning, while Ayadi looks stunning in a silver blue dress. They both stand, and Ayadi says, "Well, you clean up pretty nice." Sejana smiles. "You stole my line."
"We've got a bottle of Calhoun's 15 we've been working on, but you're welcome to order something else if you'd like,"
Einar says. Sejana eyes the open bottle of 15-year and says, "Whiskey's just fine with me. Are we celebrating or mourning?" Einar turns to the Holdren woman and says,
"Thanks, Evra. Give us a little bit and then we'll order some food."
"Sure thing, Dad," she says. "Take all the time you need." She heads back inside. Sejana looks at the retreating form and back at Einar. "Now I understand how we got the best seat at Campeche's." Einar smiles, though the weariness on the edges of his eyes say more.
"She's worked hard to become a manager here. I'm incredibly proud."
He leans over and pours a few fingers of whiskey into a waiting glass and holds it out to Sejana.
"And to answer your question, we're doing both."
He raises his glass.
"It's been an honor being the captain of the Howlin' Wolf and flying the stars with you two."
Sejana raises her own glass and says, "I know, I'm so sorry." He shakes his head.
It was bound to happen eventually. Maybe I'm ready for retirement after all. I'm just sorry that you'll have to find a new place to live."
"For the record," Ayadi says, "I think it's total bullshit. Captain Dorless called basically right after to tell me how much he was looking forward to flying with me as his pilot." She looks at Sejana. "I told him to stuff it. Called and left a message for Zhang, too. Tell him that if he didn't want Einar as captain of the Wolf, then he'd need to find a new pilot, too." Einar closes his eyes and shakes his head.
"I really wish you hadn't done that."
"I'll not. I won't fly for someone who makes bad decisions, and firing you was the worst decision." Sejana sips her whiskey, then gives the liquid in the glass a double take. Einar chuckles.
"Worth every rue, isn't it?"
Then, turning to Ayadi, he says,
"I didn't finish what I was saying. I wish you hadn't done that, but I'm grateful for your support. You're a hell of a pilot. You'll find a ship."
"You said we were mourning and celebrating," Sejana asks. "Damn right," Ayadi says. "We escaped death a few times in the last few weeks. If that ain't worth celebrating, I don't know what is." And she raises her glass. The other two salute, and all three drink.
"How did your meeting at the palace go?"
Einar asks. Sejana thinks for a moment and says, "Interesting. I know I've spent most of the last few weeks trying to keep you out of danger, but, well, would you be open to a career change, seeing as you're both available?" Einar and Ayadi look at each other and back to her. Einar says,
"I'm almost afraid to ask."
"It's dangerous, and you'd be fools to accept," Sejana says. Ayadi grins. "You're doing a great job selling it." Sejana shrugs. "I'm not sure I want to sell you on it, but I do feel responsible for your current employment woes, and I may just have a solution. I'll lay it all out for you, and you can decide for yourselves." Two days later, Sejana walks into a small office on a basement level beneath the palace. The starry-eyed young soldier who guided her remains at attention outside as the door slides shut behind her. It's a relatively Spartan room with a single desk and two chairs, a row of cabinets along the back wall, and a portrait of the Grand Duke on the wall to her left. A bulky man with dark skin and a bald head speckled with sweat stands and extends a hand, which Sejana shakes. He gestures at one of the chairs and says,
"Mix Luchael, I'm Ulysses Terrence, and I serve as an LIRS broker on behalf of the Saranovsky family. We're so excited you decided to offer your services."
Sejana sits and looks him up and down. "I suppose I shouldn't be surprised to find a spook tucked in the Palace of Whisper's basement." Terrence smiles. "The Admiral warned me you would not be trifled with." Shrugging, Sejana says, "It doesn't really require too many leaps in logic. You decorate like IIA." He looks around the room as though confused. There's a pressure switch on the portrait. If it's not disarmed before moved, I'm guessing stun pulse. That cabinet has a full-service surveillance suite humming behind it, and that's not to mention the false panel on the desk hiding your body pistol. She folds her arms. Or maybe it's just that the First Admiral specifically sent me to you because she's concerned about the hierarchy. Hardly the task for a liar broker. He chuckles and folds his hands, leaning back in his chair.
Did you just come down to show off your powers of deduction, or would you like to do some work that will help the universe?
I'm here to work, but I do have a caveat. Sejana offers him her knife-like smile. The work you need done isn't going to be confined to Cassida, and I'm sure you've thought about how to transport me where I need to be, but I need a ship. Small is fine, but it needs to fit my fighter and my crew. Terrence raises an eyebrow.
Your crew? I was under the impression that as a liar, you prefer to work alone. I know about your arrangement aboard the Howlin' Wolf, but I also understand that agreement has been terminated.
Correct. And I just so happen to know an engineer and a pilot with whom I work very well.
They aren't liars. Stargleam is a merchant, and while Kaylana is a decorated scout pilot, she's been flying freighters for years. Not exactly a crack squad of commandos. The Admiral will never authorize involving civilians,
Terrence says, rotating his chair to the left and leaning back further. I bring my crew, Sejana says. That is my price for taking your contracts.
I could void list you so no other brokers will offer you contracts,
Terrence says, voice suddenly very soft. The knife-like smile returns. Mr. Terrence, your Admiral desperately wants my help. She stands. Why don't you call me back once you've talked it over with her? I'm sure she'll agree it's a small price to pay. Terrence sighs and chuckles.
Despite having the resources of the entire Cassidan Navy, Admiral Tualeski does want you. Personally, I don't care how the job gets done, so long as it is. If you want to put your friends in danger for the good of the system, I'll raise a glass to you all, and I won't lose a second of sleep.
Sejana sits back down and leans back. What you do on your own time is no business of mine. Now, what's our first contract? End of Part 2. Thanks for listening to Errant Adventures. If you enjoyed the show, please spread the word. And if you want to support the show directly, leave me a review or support me on Patreon at patreon.com/errantadventures. You can also buy me a coffee at ko-fi.com/errantadventures. If you want to interact with me, my handle on all the socials is @errantsolopod, or you can email me at errantsolopod@gmail.com. I also post short fiction and campaign-related materials on my website, errantadventurespod.com. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you in the deep, liars.